Hello, Charles Moscowitz here. Thanks for joining me. So it looks like the deep state is going to resort to the claim of obstruction of justice on the part of President Trump as their main article of impeachment now that the whole phony Ukraine conspiracy, I was going to say the Russia conspiracy, that too, but the Ukraine conspiracy hoax has fallen through, and they've not gotten anybody on record who actually has anything to say about the call, all secondhand hearsay, including the whistleblower, so-called. Now they're going to obstruction of justice. Now, what does this mean? This means that if President Trump criticizes the committee, if President Trump orders as an executive order that his personnel are not to testify before this committee because they're not legitimate, because they haven't formally asked for articles of impeachment with the full House, but only with a small clique of people who are operating behind closed doors in an unprecedented move, that President Trump, by using his executive authority that was first exercised, by the way, by President Eisenhower when he was asked to give testimony to the McCarthy hearing, he had claimed executive privilege, that somehow this is an obstruction of justice, that itself will become the charge for impeachment, that President Trump, using the balance of power, using the executive power versus legislative, is challenging this committee's legitimacy, that, according to Schiff and his corrupt gang over there, constitutes obstruction of justice. This was the same charge brought against President Trump during the when Mueller and his brown shirts were trying to prove a Russia collusion. That when President Trump would criticize the committee, when he would say something, when he would nod a certain way, when he even moved a certain way, when he went to the bathroom, this would constitute obstruction of justice because it allegedly interrupted their committee work, which it did not do, of course. But even if it did, these are questions of executive power versus legislative, and in that case, a special prosecutor, things that ought to be tested in the court system. This whole argument is obviously and fundamentally wrong as well, because there was no Russia collusion, and that there's nothing to this Ukraine hoax, given the fact that President Trump released the entire transcript of his phone call with Zelensky, the new prime minister of the Ukraine, for the public to view. So there's nothing, this whole thing is just, it's another one of these deep state attempts to try to muddy up Trump or even take him out of office, which is what they like to do, since they can't beat him in the general election. They feel that it's a publicity stunt. It's the more they can do this, the more they can drag it out, the more they can sully his reputation in the public mind, and the more time they get to with their fat faces on television. So they burnish their own careers, allegedly. I think it's backfiring, but I want to talk again about the obstruction of justice charge. If there is a, committee or any kind of inquiry where you are being criticized publicly, and you oppose that, that's not obstruction of justice. That's free speech. And so when President Trump is being kicked and lied about publicly by these thugs, if he stands up and says no and challenges them, they're calling that obstruction of justice. This is like, to bring an example, during the Kavanaugh hearings, when the testimony was that Brett Kavanaugh was a gang rapist, and that he responded by getting upset, they said, oh, you're obstructing justice because you're upset. You're not behaving like a proper judge. Your temperament isn't right. You should be able to stand there and smile while on national television these phony people are accusing you of gang rape, right? That therefore you're obstructing justice by responding. This is the same thing here. President Trump, they're not, and they're very serious. Chris Matthews at MSNBC has kind of as a point person for this agenda, laid it out on television last night saying that, there's going to be charges of obstruction of justice. Now, what this tells you is basically they've moved on from the Ukraine conspiracy hoax. because they've got nothing. They're coming up dry. So now they're going to attack President Trump for his response to this phony conspiracy hoax. That is what they're going to try to impeach him on. It's getting weirder. It's getting more absurd. I've heard one tiny glimmer of good news today in that there is one Democratic member of the House from New Jersey, his name escapes me right now, who has said publicly that he is going to vote against the impeachment inquiry. Maybe that is the first, log to break to break through the dam. I don't know, but maybe we'll have some legitimate Democrats who are going to put aside this sickening agenda and vote their conscience, vote in the interest of their country, of their constituency, and come out against this so they could get back to the work of governing. I don't expect that at all from Massachusetts, of course, but maybe this is the beginning of a return to consciousness for the Democratic Party, which may become more normal and more legitimate in their opposition to President Trump, and they should. That's what their job is to do, not to do these phony, impeachment things, which are going to be damaging to the country. Anyway, thanks for joining me, everyone. Charles Moscowitz here. Have a great day.